February 19th, 1994. It is a cold evening in Riverside, California. Inside the emergency room of Riverside General Hospital, the air is sterile and smells faintly of antiseptic and coffee. It is the smell of a routine shift. The doctors and nurses on duty have seen everything. They have seen car crash victims, heart attacks, overdoses. They are professionals. They are hardened. They believe that nothing can surprise them. At 8:15 p.m., paramedics burst through the double doors, pushing a gurney. On it lies a 31-year-old woman named Gloria Ramirez. She is conscious, but barely. She is confused. Her heart is beating dangerously fast, and her blood pressure is plummeting. She's in the final stages of cervical cancer. The medical team moves like a well-oiled machine. They surround the bed in Trauma Room 1. They've done this 1,000 times. Hook up the monitors, check the airways, administer drugs to stabilize the heart rate. It is a dance they know by heart. But within 45 minutes, that dance will turn into a scene from a science fiction nightmare. The professionals in that room will not just fail to save Gloria Ramirez. They will become casualties themselves. People will drop to the floor, convulsing. The hospital will be evacuated. Men in hazmat suits will descend on the building. And Gloria Ramirez will gain a new name, one that will haunt medical textbooks for decades. The Toxic Lady. To understand the horror of what happened that night, you have to understand the setting. A trauma room is a small, enclosed space. There is no ventilation to the outside world. It is designed to keep germs in or out. It creates a seal. When the nurses stripped off Gloria's clothing to attach the defibrillator pads, they noticed something strange. Her skin wasn't just pale, it was covered in an oily sheen. It looked like sweat, but it didn't behave like sweat. When they wiped it, it felt slick, almost synthetic. And then came the smell. It wasn't the smell of sickness or death. It was a distinct, fruity odor. Some said it smelled like garlic. Others said it smelled like ammonia. It was coming from her mouth. It was coming from her pores. A registered nurse named Susan Kane was given the task of drawing blood for analysis. She tied the tourniquet around Gloria's arm and inserted the needle. As the syringe filled with dark red blood, the smell in the room intensified. It became acrid, chemical. Susan Kane leaned in closer to the syringe. What she saw made her pause. Inside the barrel of the syringe, floating in the warm blood of a dying woman, were particles. Tiny, manila-colored flecks. They weren't clots. They looked like crystals, shards of glass or ice, forming spontaneously inside a human vein. Susan showed the syringe to the medical resident, Dr. Julie Gorczynski. "Look at this," she said. "What is that?" Dr. Gorczynski took the vial. She held it up to the fluorescent lights. She confirmed it. There were crystals suspended in the blood. Before they could discuss it, Susan Kane turned away. She felt a sudden wave of heat wash over her face. The room started to spin. She leaned against the counter, trying to steady herself. "I don't feel good," she whispered. Seconds later, Susan Kane's knees buckled. She collapsed, face first, onto the hard linoleum floor. The room erupted. "Man down!" someone shouted. Dr. Gorczynski handed the vial of blood to another nurse and rushed to help Susan. They lifted her onto a stretcher and wheeled her out of the room. But as Dr. Gorczynski returned to Trauma Room 1, she began to feel it too. It wasn't just lightheadedness, it was a burning sensation in her lungs. Her legs felt heavy, like they were filled with lead. She looked at a respiratory therapist named Maureen Welch. Maureen was standing over Gloria, pumping air into her lungs with a bag valve mask. "Do you smell that?" Dr. Gorczynski asked. Before Maureen could answer, Dr. Gorczynski began to shake. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. She sat down at a nurse's station, gasping for air. Then her eyes rolled back. She slid out of the chair and hit the ground. She stopped breathing. In the span of 5 minutes, the 2 primary medical professionals attending to Gloria Ramirez were unconscious. Panic set in. The remaining staff looked at each other with wide eyes. What was happening? Was it a gas leak? Was there a toxin in the ventilation? Maureen Welch, the respiratory therapist, was the next to fall. She later recalled feeling like she was losing control of her limbs. She woke up hours later, unable to move her legs. The emergency room at Riverside General descended into chaos. The staff wasn't fighting to save Gloria anymore. They were fighting to escape her. Orders were screamed over the intercom. Evacuate the ER. Now, patients were wheeled out into the parking lot. Doctors and nurses, some of them still gasping for air, stripped off their scrubs, terrified that the poison was clinging to their clothes. Inside Trauma Room 1, a skeleton crew stayed behind. They wore protective gear, but it felt insufficient against whatever invisible force was emanating from the woman on the table. Despite their efforts, Gloria Ramirez died at 8:50 p.m. But her death was only the beginning of the mystery. 2 nurses grabbed Gloria's body. They pushed the gurney into an isolation room and slammed the door. They taped the seams. They treated the body of this 31-year-old mother not like a human being, but like a leaking nuclear reactor. The fallout was immediate. 6 hospital employees were hospitalized. 23 reported symptoms. Dr. Julie Gorchinsky, the resident who had looked at the crystals, suffered the worst of it. She spent 2 weeks in intensive care. She developed apnea, hepatitis, and pancreatitis. But the most terrifying symptom was what happened to her bones. She developed a vascular necrosis in her knees. The blood supply to her bone marrow was cut off. Her bones literally began to die inside her body. She would need crutches for months. The county health department was baffled. They sent in a hazmat team to search the ER for gas leaks. They found nothing. No sewer gas, no faulty air conditioning, no spilled chemicals. Everything pointed back to the body in the isolation room. The autopsy of Gloria Ramirez was conducted under conditions usually reserved for the most dangerous biohazards on Earth. The pathologists wore moon suits, fully encapsulated, positive pressure suits with their own air supply. They entered a sealed room. They moved slowly, terrified that a slip of the scalpel would release more of the deadly gas. And what did they find? Nothing. Her heart was healthy. Her liver was intact. There was no sign of poison, no sign of heavy metals, no cyanide. The only thing they found was the cancer that had killed her. The lack of answers infuriated the public, and then the hospital administration made a mistake that turned the tragedy into a scandal. They released a report stating that the nurses and doctors had not been poisoned at all. They claimed it was a case of mass sociogenic illness, mass hysteria. The report suggested that the smell was imaginary. It suggested that Susan Kane fainted from stress, and when the other staff saw her fall, they panicked and their minds created the symptoms. They called the doctors and nurses trained professionals, delusional. Dr. Gorchinsky was furious. "I didn't imagine my knees dying," she told the press. "I didn't imagine spending 2 weeks in the ICU." The mass hysteria theory was a slap in the face. It ignored the oily sheen. It ignored the ammonia smell. And most importantly, it ignored the manila-colored crystals. If it wasn't hysteria, what was it? It took a team of researchers from the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, a facility that usually designs nuclear weapons, to crack the case. They looked at the toxicology report again. They saw something the coroners had missed. Gloria Ramirez had been in immense pain from her cancer. In the weeks before her death, she had been using a potent home remedy to try to cure herself. She was using a substance called DMSO, Dimethyl Sulfoxide. DMSO is a powerful solvent. It comes in a gel form. It penetrates the skin instantly and enters the bloodstream. It has a distinct garlic-like taste and smell. This explained the fruity breath. It explained the oily sheen on her skin. It was the DMSO gel she had rubbed on her body to stop the pain. But DMSO isn't poisonous. Athletes use it for muscle pain. It's harmless. So how did it turn into a chemical weapon? The scientists proposed a theory that is a 1 in a billion chemical reaction, a perfect storm of biology and physics. When Gloria arrived at the hospital, she was in kidney failure. Her body couldn't flush out the DMSO. It was building up in her blood. The paramedics gave her pure oxygen on the way to the hospital. Here is the chemistry of the nightmare. Step 1. The oxygen combined with the DMSO in her blood to create DMSO2, dimethyl sulfone. DMSO2 creates crystals at room temperature. This explained the manila-colored shards in the syringe. When the warm blood left her body and hit the cooler air of the ER, the chemical crystallized instantly. But crystals don't make people faint. Step 2. The electric shocks. The defibrillators. The scientists theorized that when the doctors shocked Gloria's heart to try to save her, the electricity hit the crystals. It broke down the chemical structure of the DMSO2 and converted it into something else, something volatile. It turned it into DMSO4. DMSO4 has another name, dimethyl sulfate. Dimethyl sulfate is not a home remedy. It is a chemical warfare agent. It is a gas so toxic that even a small amount can cause convulsions, paralysis, and death. It destroys the tissues of the lungs and eyes. The theory goes like this. Gloria Ramirez had inadvertently turned her own body into a chemical laboratory. The oxygen, the kidney failure, and the electricity combined to synthesize a nerve gas inside her veins. When the nurse drew the blood, the gas was released from the syringe. It hit Susan Kane in the face. It filled the small, unventilated trauma room. It poisoned the doctors. It rotted Dr. Gorchinsky's bones. It is the only theory that explains everything: the smell, the crystals, the symptoms. But to this day, it remains just a theory. Gloria's family denies that she used DMSO. The coroner's office officially lists her cause of death as cardiac arrhythmia due to kidney failure. They buried her in an unmarked grave in Riverside, terrified that someone would try to dig her up. But there is one final, haunting detail. 2 months after Gloria died, her body was released to the family for burial. But the county coroner kept something. They kept her heart. They claimed they needed it for further testing. It wasn't until weeks later that the heart was returned. It was returned in a jar, but the family noticed something strange. The heart was pristine. It hadn't decomposed. It looked preserved, almost as if it had been pickled in a chemical preservative. The story of Gloria Ramirez is not a ghost story. It is a story about the fragility of the human body. We like to think of hospitals as places of order and science. We like to think that there is an explanation for everything. But on that night in 1994, science broke. The laws of nature twisted. A woman went to the hospital looking for help. She wanted to live. Instead, she became the most dangerous person in the world for 45 minutes. We may never know for sure if it was DMSO or something else, something we haven't discovered yet, but we know this. The fear in that emergency room was real. The injuries were real. And somewhere, in a quiet cemetery in California, lies the body of the toxic lady. And even now, more than 30 years later, people are afraid to walk near her grave. Because deep down, we all wonder, could it happen again?